As well as watching this vodcast, you can watch Good Game on ABC2 every Monday night at 9 o'clock and ABC1 late on Friday nights after Triple J TV with the Doctor. Hello and welcome to Good Game. Level 4.
The show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Junglist. 2007 was the biggest year for gaming ever, and 2008 is going to be much the same. We're here to get amongst it.
And to bring you more gamer news, interviews, and reviews than you can fit in your pants.
Maybe your pants. What'd you get up to over the break, Badge?
Well, I finally got my WoW gnome to 70, and something I've noticed, Junglist, whenever my character is well-fed, has lots of money, people are inviting him out to do things, lots of gear, lots of stuff, the complete reverse happens in my real life.
'Tis the curse of the MMO.
How about yourself?
I spent copious amounts of time in Call of Duty 4. It was time well spent, although I'm starting to think that maybe a golden deagle isn't the most practical thing for a foot soldier to have.
Yeah, they don't come cheap. Coming up this week, we take down some demons in style in the much-anticipated Devil May Cry 4.
Turok, our old dino-slaying Native American, is back, and this time, he's a spaceman.
We also do a status report on the movers, shakers, and heartbreakers of the Australian gaming industry.
And in our new segment, Backwards Compatibility, we'll be looking at ghosts and goblins. But first, can you guess this retro game? This one was developed by an Australian whose latest game has become a worldwide cross-platform hit.
But now, the news. Go, Junglers, go!
2007 was a good year for the Australian games market, according to the latest figures from research firm GfK Australia. The local market grew by 43% last year, with Australians spending more than $1.3 billion on video and computer game hardware and software. In terms of hardware sales, the Nintendo DS comfortably came out on top of the Australian charts, with more than 2.3 million consoles sold in 2007 alone. Surprisingly enough, the 7-year-old PlayStation 2 was Australia's second highest selling gaming hardware, with the Nintendo Wii coming in third place. However, controversy surrounds which was the best-selling game of 2007 worldwide. Microsoft have claimed 360 exclusive Halo 3 the winner after it sold 7 million copies, while Activision claim Infinity Ward's Call of Duty 4 takes the prize after gamers bought over 8 million copies. Especially impressive given that Call of Duty 4 was only released in November and has already overtaken Halo 3 as the most played game on Xbox Live. A 12-year-old Norwegian boy has survived a violent attack by a moose thanks to playing a hunter class in World of Warcraft. According to Norwegian site Nettavisen, Hans and his sister were attacked by an enraged moose whilst playing in the woods close to their home. Hans shouted at the animal to take the aggro away from his sister and then feigned death, a move hunters in World of Warcraft learn at level 30. The moose eventually lost interest and walked away, leaving the children unscathed.
Fantastic!
Action fans, welcome to Fortuna, a small town in the world of Devil May Cry 4, where style meets substance in the form of perfectly sculptured, white-haired male model swordsmen. But this one starts a little differently, with our former hero Dante attacking a church and killing its high priest. To understand why, you'll have to fill the shoes of our newest demon hunter, Nero, and he's packing a little something extra.
You got a trick up your sleeve.
From there onwards, you'll be defending Fortuna from waves and waves of Cabbage Patch demons, and the name of this game is style. The object of DMC4 is not just to win, you have to look good doing it. Every attack that's not the same as the last adds to your stylish meter, and if you can keep it up, at the end of the level you get a grade, which adds to your power-ups and moves. Combos can be created by using Nero's kick-ass sword that revs up like a motorcycle, his dual-shot pistol, as well as evading enemy attacks and the use of his demonic arm.
It definitely rewards the curious adventurer. If you're one of those gamers who like to explore every nook and cranny, you'll find lots of goodies, including special missions where you'll need to do challenges such as kill 5 demons without touching the ground. These are pretty hard, but they give you skills you can use later in the game.
And some of the later moves get ridiculous. I mean, you go from swords to bazookas, giant lasers, and this thing.
And all that stuff's cool, right?
Oh, it's hella cool.
But on the whole, I found the actual combat side of things repetitive. Aside from the bosses, it's basically the whole game is you walking into a series of rooms, enemies spawn, and you kill them.
Well, I reckon it's one of those games where you have to make your own fun. I mean, they give you all the tools and abilities to pull off stylish combos. It's up to you to practice and experiment to pull them off properly.
But sometimes I don't want to make my own fun, I just want to be entertained. If you're the type of gamer that likes to win as fast as possible, I don't think you'll enjoy this as much. I mean, Jung, is it just a certain type of gamer that's going to like DMC?
Nah, I mean, that may have been the case before, but Devil May Cry games have been frustrating gamers for years by forcing you to start at the beginning of a level if you die, which is especially frustrating if you're up against a hard boss. Number 4 combats this by having shorter missions, 20 in total, ranging from about 15 to 30 minutes each.
They've also made it easier overall, with hard being akin to normal in previous versions. You also can't unlock all the moves in normal mode, so there's definite incentive and replay value here to beat it on hard.
Yeah, exactly, so I think newcomers will like 4 a lot better than 3. If I had one criticism though, it's Nero's demon arm. It's awesome, and I know it's Nero's thing, but it just seems like a bit of an I win button, like the solution to every problem. I didn't mind as much though, because every time you use it, you're rewarded with a cool animation.
Well, that and the one techno song that plays throughout every single battle.
Yeah, and it really wasn't that great a song, was it?
And what was the deal with the totally random soft porn halfway through the game?
Yes, about 4 missions in, you're introduced to Gloria, and in general, the series is pretty shameless with its female characters.
More the dead or alive?
That's asking a lot, but yeah.
May the Savior be with you on your journey.
In terms of bosses and cutscenes, Devil May Cry 4 is a level above most of the other games out there at the moment. We've gone back to replay bosses more than once just for fun.
And they've managed to pack in many abilities without cluttering up the controls. Nero's demon arm interacts with magical objects differently, and Dante can switch between 4 styles mid-combat.
Which I guess brings us to Dante. Now, without giving too much away, gamers, about halfway through you switch from Nero to Dante, and if you thought Nero was a badass, he's just the John Saxon to Dante's Bruce Lee.
Who's John Saxon?
Exactly. You can spank demons in gunslinger stance, swordsman stance, and royal guard stance.
Alright, so you like the cutscenes and the boss fights. What are your final thoughts on this one?
Well, you know, about halfway through, it's kind of like a good book. You don't want to put the controller down. The later battles are very enjoyable, and even though I think the hardcore gamers might get a bit bored with the endless amounts of demons to kill, there's enough reward here to play the game right through to the end. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens. Jung?
DMC4 may be a small step away from its hardcore purist fan base, but it's a giant leap towards the mainstream, and it's a better game for it. It's a little bit easier, but a lot cooler, and I already can't wait for number 5. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens, and I should point out that while the PS3 and 360 version is out at the moment, we reviewed the PS3 version.
Good game!
For many in the Australian games development industry, 2007 was the best of times. Record sales, a record number of players, and the newly elected federal government finally understanding the merits of an industry tax rebate. But for some, it was the worst of times. Globally anticipated, groundbreaking, and set to challenge the world, the largest ever independent Australian-made title, Fury, was primed to conquer all. A week before Christmas, it all went horribly wrong. Dire international sales forced Orin Development into voluntary administration. Most of the staff lost their jobs, and the chance to write gaming history was lost.
Sadly, we didn't capture the imagination of the gaming public as we anticipated, and we did pretty good in Australia, but the rest of the world just didn't support us to anything like the level we needed. So, yeah, sadly we had to let, well, basically 60 people go just before Christmas. It was the worst feeling in my life. It was just so stressful. I just don't want to go through it again in a hurry, that's for sure.
Fury was a very ambitious project. Do you think it was too big for Australia?
Well, we knew we couldn't compete on the same playing field as WoW, right? So we said, let's pick our market and dominate the niche. And we were very, very close, and we still haven't given up hope. I mean, the game's still running today, and you know, we're getting 500 new players a day through the free-to-play model.
And in an industry as small as Australia's, when one company takes a blow, they all feel the pain.
Every success that Australia has helps every game developer in Australia, and the flip side of that is every failure of a game developer in Australia hurts every development studio in Australia. There's no doubt that when we deal with publishers in the US or publishers in Europe, they tend to look at Australia as a whole.
My father told me that pioneers get shot with arrows, and I think that in that instance they did. You know, they tried to do something very big, very quickly, and essentially in a new genre of MMOGs. And I think in hindsight, which is always easy to say, that was a real challenge and fraught with danger.
Despite the closure of or in development, 2007 was a bumper year for other Australian developers. Infinite Interactive took a risk and changed course into the casual games market with Puzzle Quest.
It just came about because I had a very unhealthy obsession with Bejeweled, and I've been playing RPGs for many, many years, so a bit like any good chef when he puts together a new recipe, I kind of took the two bits and thought, well, I like this, what all happens if I put them together? 2 weeks after we'd done it, we knew it was a great little game, so we spent the next 12 months developing the idea. I mean, we've got a motto here is the good games sell, so if we sit and polish our games and get them just right, we have a good feeling they'll sell, and historically that's worked out for us. We must have put it through 20 pairs of hands before someone finally liked the game and picked it up. Publishers could see it was a good game, they'd get back to me and say, hey, we love the game, it's really cool, but we just can't figure out how many copies it's going to sell. It was public knowledge back in April that for quite a few weeks, a couple of months in fact, we were out selling Mario and Pokemon. So, I think that's probably the one time in my life I'm going to write a game that does that. So I lapped it up. That was just fantastic. We really enjoyed that.
The success shines a light on the industry, the Australian industry, and if publishers are looking to place projects down here, obviously that sort of exposure always helps. And if you look at projects like we're working on at the moment, Heroes over Europe and Bay Sin City, the costs in hardware and software just to get started, we're talking millions of dollars. And so if you can develop a casual game, for example, that is on the mobile platform, or for mobile games, or casual games on the PC, and build a reputation through that and then move onwards and upwards, I think that's a smart move.
So are casual games the only way forward for Australian developers? The Games Development Association is pushing for Aussie game companies to be given a tax break, similar to the 40% that our film industry is granted. This has worked in other countries. In Canada, for example, developers are granted a tax break on employees working in the industry. The result is a booming workforce and a lot more games.
At the end of the day, what the GDAA is asking for is not a handout by any means. What we're asking for is a level playing field with the film and TV production industries.
Films get money, we don't. Why the difference? My answer to that is that games are still relatively new. Basically, if you're under 40, you understand games. If you're over 40, you don't. So I think the decision makers are over 40, and that's the issue.
In such a competitive global market, it's going to be increasingly tough for Aussie companies to turn a profit. What does the future hold? Will Australia miss the boat?
If there's not a significant initiative launched in the next 12 months, the industry won't reach its potential. We have the ability to make world-class product, but it's all about offering the right incentives to bring those production contracts to Australia.
As always, we're keen to hear your thoughts.
Do you think the Australian games industry deserves a tax break? Could and should more be done to support the games industry in this country?
As Aussies, is it important that we support games made here? Jump on the forums and post away.
But now, an old friend returns to Good Game. Richard Fargus, talk show host extraordinaire.
Over to you, Richard.
Hello, and welcome to the all-new Gamer Tonight! Fighting games are a brutal slugfest of punches and kicks. From realistic martial arts to over-the-top energy blasts, fighter fans lob attack after attack at their opponents to drain their health bars down to the very last pixel. Tonight, we welcome Ryukin Hadouken. He's a renowned tournament fighter.
My presence here is tourney worthy.
The only tournament you're gonna win is a BO tourney. Take a bath.
I don't have time for things like personal hygiene. I only live to train.
What exactly do you train?
Normally I just practice my ridiculously long combos. Then I chuck in a few glitches in there. Yeah.
Really? Well, who is your favorite character? Is it Chun-Li? Or maybe Dalzine?
Oh, please, you gotta be kidding me. Those characters are so low tier. Just about anything you select counteracts their movesets. Come on.
Oh, that's fascinating. So, what made you choose the fighting game genre?
Well, fighting games provide a great adrenaline rush. Plus, the satisfaction of celebrating over your unconscious opponent's body is always satisfying.
Really? So would you say you're a sore winner?
Sore winner? No, I wouldn't say that. I'm just an honest winner. That's what I am. I always let them know that they suck. Do you smell that? Do you smell it? That's the sour smell of failure. You'll never amount to anything.
Right. So what about when you lose?
I can't believe you used that character. You're only playing it because he's totally overpowered. You were totally button mashing. Plus the joystick wasn't working. But I want a rematch. Losing really isn't in my vocabulary.
What about this thing called good sportsmanship?
What are you talking about? I don't play sports.
Welcome to Backwards Compatibility, where we look at all things retro, games, studios, technology, and personalities. So, we finally got our hands on the long-awaited 4th installment of Devil May Cry, a game series that's been one of the defining examples of the action-adventure genre for almost a decade now. But if you think Devil May Cry was Capcom's first attempt at creating a demon-slaying sort-em-up, then think again. You're forgetting a little series called Ghosts and Goblins. Released in arcades in 1985, Ghosts and Goblins put you in control of Arthur, the game's heavily bearded, shining armor-clad protagonist, whose task is to rescue a princess who has, predictably, gone off and got herself kidnapped by demons. With his trusty lance in hand, as well as an arsenal of daggers, torches, axes, and shields, Arthur had to run, jump, and shoot his way through zombie-infested graveyards and ghost-filled castles to get to a final showdown with the evil Astaroth, king of the demons. One of the most memorable features of Ghosts and Goblins was Arthur's unique defense mechanism against attack. Instead of simply giving up the ghost after one hit, Arthur cunningly let his armor absorb the blow. While this technique left his armor broken into 100 pieces, it did leave the fleshy Arthur relatively unharmed. Of course, this meant that most of the time you'd find yourself facing the forces of darkness in your undies. An embarrassing technique, but effective nonetheless. Above all else, Ghosts and Goblins is probably best remembered for its legendary difficulty. It was so hard that finishing just the first level was an achievement, let alone the entire game. And even if you did make it as far as Astaroth and then beat him, it still wasn't over. You were presented with a fake ending screen which takes you back to the first level and forced you to play through the entire game again on an even harder setting. Despite the game's punishing difficulty, it quickly gained a dedicated following amongst arcade gamers, and went on to spawn 4 sequels. Ghouls and Ghosts was the first of these, launching into arcades in 1988. Once again, a princess was in peril, although this time Arthur had a few new magic attacks up his armored sleeve. These new skills made the game easier than the first installment, but the difficulty was still ridiculously high. 1991 brought the 3rd installment, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, for the Super Nintendo, which once again raised the bar. Arthur gained the ability to double jump in midair, as well as even more magic spells to use on his demonic adversaries. It would take almost a decade, but Arthur once again took up the lance in an exclusive sequel for the Bandai WonderSwan handheld console. Released in 1999, Ghosts and Goblins for WonderSwan remains the most obscure of all the games in the series, due to the WonderSwan's rarity and the fact that the console and its games were never released outside Japan. Over the years, there have been no less than 5 spin-off games based on the Ghosts and Goblins formula. In 1990, Capcom released Gargoyle's Quest for the Game Boy, which took all the platforming and action of Arthur's games and put you in the role of a demon called Firebrand. The anti-hero angle was a success, and resulted in 2 sequels, Gargoyle's Quest 2 for the NES and Demon's Crest for the Super Nintendo. More recently, the series served as the inspiration for Maximo, Ghosts to Glory, and its sequel, Maximo vs. Army of Zin. But it wasn't until 2006 that a true sequel appeared. That sequel was Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins for the PSP. Featuring 3D graphics and 2D gameplay, the game brought with it some big changes while still upholding the series' traditions. Arthur's armory had grown yet again to include more implements of destruction, including some spectacular screen-filling, demon-smiting magical effects. Although still challenging, Ultimate Ghosts and Goblins was by far the easiest of the series. This was mostly thanks to the respawning system, which let you keep playing from the same spot you died in, as opposed to the classic arcade formula, which made previous versions so very, very hard. After more than 2 decades and countless pairs of undies, Arthur still remains one of our favorite platform action heroes. We don't know what the series' next step will be, but it's safe to say, wherever there are princesses and demons to kidnap them, Arthur won't be far behind.
Good game!
Nothing like a classic game character getting an outing on Next Gen, hey Junglist. Remember Turok, the battle-hardened Native American space marine time traveler? Well, he's back, and this time, his spaceship has been shot down on a strange planet. The enemy knows where you are, your squad mates hate you, and all you have to arm yourself with is a knife and a bow and arrow. And a bad haircut. Also, there's dinosaurs.
Hey, I think I got something.
Turok has been recruited to take down his former master and trainer, Cain. As you progress into the story, you find out how evil Cain really is, and why you cannot leave without succeeding in your mission.
Congratulations, Turok. That was a perfect strike. Kill her.
No innocence.
It's just a girl.
Jung, I really liked how they linked some of the early flashbacks with weapons you pick up in the game.
Yeah, that was nice. When Turok Dinosaur Hunter came out on the N64, it was praised as being much more than a Doom clone, with unique and sometimes frightening enemies and technical achievements that made the game stand out above the rest.
Yeah, and killing dinosaurs with a bow and arrow was just cool. Thankfully, in the Next Gen installment, not much has changed. Getting up close and personal with the prehistorics is now more gory, more exciting, and carries a lot more threat.
The way you have to fight in the game constantly changes. Human opponents require a lot more spam fire and grenades. Dinos force you to get some breathing room. Of course, there's nothing stopping you from introducing the two to each other to save yourself some time. There's something very voyeuristic and satisfying about watching it all play out.
In fact, you absolutely need to do this. There's very little reward for running in guns a-blazing. It pays to shoot a few bullets into your enemies before making a move. You can go up close and personal with a knife, but it is very risky if your reflexes aren't there.
Badge, I like this about Turok. You know, it's challenging and it definitely rewards the cautious player. In a lot of situations, you actually have to retreat and wait to push forward, depending on who you're fighting and what weaponry they're wielding.
Jung, I liked how hectic and dynamic these battles were, and how many times you were just knocked off your feet, especially when there's a rocket launcher around. Best RPG sound effect ever. But in general, the game is just too hard. There are some areas and certain levels where you'll die maybe 10 times before you figure out the way to get through them.
But we've had so many easy and accessible games lately, you know? I found this to be a good thing. You know, there's no I win button in Turok, so I was like, yeah, game on, it's a challenge.
Don't get me wrong, I don't like I win buttons either, but when you make a hard game like this, you need to have balance. There needs to be good and intelligent checkpoints. I just found myself saying, I have to go all the way back to here, way too much in Turok.
It is very unforgiving like that, Badge, but I kind of welcomed it, you know? It raises the stakes and it forces you to value your life more. Trial and error makes you think about how to reapproach getting past a dino and the best cover to take when you're storming a base.
But it's not the tactical trial and error that I have issue with. It's just I don't like being punished with bad checkpoints and load times just because I got shot 3 times and died.
Well, difficulty settings aside, I still found Turok pretty enjoyable, even though there's not much new here. Mission objectives are varied and often force you to set up turrets for cover. Fighting through the savage jungle makes stumbling upon an abandoned base a welcome relief, but every time you think you're safe, a dinosaur flies out of a dark corner with his eyes set on your jugular.
Killing dinos is a really gory process, and I actually felt kind of bad for them in the end, Jung. I mean, after all, they're just animals. Some of the dinos look fantastic, especially the indestructible Mother Superior T-Rex from hell. I loved how they crowd around you, but there is a little bit of ice skating when they're jumping from rock to rock.
Yeah, I noticed some of the animation mapping was a little bit off there. I missed the jungle traps from previous Turoks, and I miss him saying, "I am Turok." And even though the humans look like they're on holiday from Killzone, I enjoyed Turok, and I especially like the close combat, music-free, one-on-one knife fight towards the end. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
How good was that fight? In fact, all the boss fights are pretty fun. Invulnerable and often useless squad mates, mixed with painful difficulty walls, brought it down a little bit for me. However, at the end of the game, I enjoyed being stressed out by it all. I'm giving it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Alright gamers, did you guess the retro game for this week?
It was Warlords, released in 1989, and was the first game by Stephen Faulkner of Australian developer Infinite Interactive.
Combining medieval fantasy with turn-based strategy, Warlords pit 8 feuding clans against each other in the art of war.
As well as proving popular in its own right, Warlords would provide the setting and mythology for 7 sequels, including one of our favourite games from last year, Puzzle Quest.
And that brings us to the end of Good Game for this week. Next week, the Wii drought was ended late last year with games such as Mario and Metroid, but can the good times continue to roll with Zack and Wiki?
And Lux looks for love online. For some, it's a way of forming relationships. For others, it can end in heartbreak.
Don't forget you can view any episode of Good Game, past or present, on our website. While you're there, don't forget to join the forums, because we love to hear your feedback about the show.
Now, you've proven how creative you can be with our competitions in the past. This year, we're going to take it to a whole new level.
Over the next few weeks, we'll be announcing a new project in which you, all of you, can help us make our very own game.
We'll be asking you for concepts, artwork, level design, names, just about anything you can think of that goes into making a good game.
And when we've chosen the best of those, we'll be taking that to a developer to get it made. There's some mentorships in the industry up for grabs as well.
At the moment, we're looking for that developer. So if you work in the industry and you'd like to work with the Good Game audience and us, please visit our website for more information.
So until next time, gamers, whether you're fragging dinosaurs or demons, make sure it's a good game. Junglist out.
Barjo out.